So whether you're watching this video live in real time or you're watching the replay of it, if it's still up at that time, I just want to begin this by explaining the format of this live stream so that you won't be confused about how it works. So for Preptober, I'm doing something specific and special to Preptober where I start my live streams with some instructional information about what we're going to be writing about at the end of the stream. And during that portion where I'm speaking for anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes about instructions to do with the topic, I won't be responding to comments. I won't actually even be acting as if I'm live. And that is because once this video is done and I have the time, because I am a very one-person team, then I'm going to take the video, edit out the informational purpose, make that its own produced video, and then the live stream will be deleted once I repurpose it as a produced video instead of a live stream. So just explaining that so that you won't be confused if you put something in the comments or you're trying to talk to me and it seems like I'm ignoring you. I promise I'm not ignoring you. I love you. But I just need to keep that separate from the live stream portion. And so after I'm done with the instructional portion, there'll be a quick Q&A break, and also a small break for me to drink some liquids and kind of come down after giving educational instruction. And then we're going to actually sit down together and work together. Today is the topic of this thumbnail has stated is all about outlining. So whether you already have an outline process and you've already gotten started with an outline and you just want to come here and work on your outline some more, or you absolutely have no outlines, you came to this video because you wanted outline help, I will have writing prompts for you if you are the latter, if you are someone who needs assistance with choosing outlines. So with that all explained and that all stated, I am going to now go ahead and jump into the informational portion of this video. All right. So welcome to episode 2 of my Preptober 2021 series. In this episode, I'll be talking all about the popular outlining methods, especially amongst NaNoWriMo writers. So if you're still trying to figure out what you even want to write for NaNoWriMo, or you're looking at this video and you're wondering, what the heck is NaNoWriMo and what is even Preptober, please go back and watch episode 1 of the Preptober series because I explain how to find ideas, how to choose ideas, and I even explain what NaNoWriMo and Preptober is in episode 1. All right, so before I dive into the sharing the 4 outlining methods that I researched that seemed really popular for those in NaNoWriMo, I just want to give a really quick introduction of this channel and myself for all of you who are new. And if you're returning, thank you for that as well. So my name is Tiffany Cole. I am the founder of From Idea to You, this YouTube channel that is all about my journey as a writer, writing in general, and like the craft of writing and the business of writing. I come from a background of nearly a decade of being a copy editor, a book reviewer, someone who has assisted writers with marketing. So because of that decade of information, I can give a lot of information on this channel about not only what it is like to excel as a writer creatively, but what it's like to excel as a writer when you're thinking of it from the business standpoint. Something I also want to be upfront about is that is of the posting of this video, 2021. I am actually a social media associate for National Novel Writing Month, just for a couple months. And I want to make it clear for transparency's sake that I am not doing this video as part of my job for them, nor am I being compensated. There we go. Wow, that word was gone. Anyway, I'm not being compensated for this video. I love NaNoWriMo. I would have been doing this series if they did not hire me because I have been a fan of NaNoWriMo and entering on and off for the last 15 years. So I'm doing this out of a labor of love and not because I work for them, just so you know. All right, so now it is time to get into the meat of the topic, into what you came here for, and that is outlining techniques. Now, just to be clear, there are a load of outlining techniques. Some people follow techniques that people know about, and other people just come up with their own techniques. However, as I mentioned, I did some research and hung out in the NaNoWriMo communities. And in those communities, I found it common that people were using these 4 outlining methods in particular. And so those are the ones I am going to focus on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just give some quick information about these 4 methods. This won't be a very long, in-depth kind of video, as in I'm not going to be breaking these down in the nitty gritty. I'm just going to be introducing you to these techniques so that you can go and learn more about it yourself. Also, in the description below, I have links, multiple links for each of these outlining techniques. So even though I'm going to give you a high up in the air airplane view of these techniques, if you really want to dig in, just go in the description and click the links and you can dig in. I made sure to provide links that both explain in more detail how the outlining technique works, along with examples from people who actually use that technique in their writing to guide you through it. All right, so let me just go ahead and share my screen. All right, and I just have to make sure that it's actually going to work. So let me double check. All right, it appears as though it's working now. Okay, so the first method I want to talk about is called the Snowflake Method for designing a novel. This is a method I've actually been using for over a decade myself in my own writing. But this is one of those outlining techniques that are very intense. Um, I'm just going to scroll down just to show you, just from looking at it, how intense it is. It really breaks down everything in the novel, like bit by bit by bit. And it can be really complex in reading this article. So when you look in the description to get the link to the Snowflake method, if you're interested in it, make sure you click the second link that's in my description, because that one actually has a spreadsheet that you can download totally free that walks you through the Snowflake method bit by bit. But yeah, this is one of my favorites. This is not for people who I feel like a lot of pantsers might be turned off by this kind of method. They might think that it hinders your creativity. However, I find that it doesn't hinder your creativity. I find that by being really nitty gritty and following a long amount of steps that break down characters and arcs and scenes from the big picture down to the small picture, what you get is that then now you have an amazing standing point. You have something where, because all the basics are figured out, now your creativity is not spent just trying to figure out the basics. Your creativity is instead spent, now that you have the basics, just going wild and being creative, because you don't have to worry about the basics. It's pretty much like having a template where now all you need to do is be creative and fill in the rest outside of the bare minimum. I think that the Snowflake method is perfect for NaNoWriMo, because since you have to write, well, you don't have to, but since the general goal is to start a brand new novel and write 50,000 words in a month, your life is so much easier if you are not sitting, every time you sit down to write, if you are not feeling like, oh man, I have no idea where I'm even starting. I haven't even figured out the basics. Now, if you use the Snowflake method, you can just go wild because the basics are all figured out. And I think the words will flow so much easier that way. So Snowflake method is without a doubt one of my favorites. The next method I want to talk to you about is called the bookend method. So strangely, this is not a method that I could seem to find any articles that were focusing entirely only on the bookend method. I kept finding the bookend method in listicle articles that just laid out other methods as well. The bookend method is, so like in the previous example where I was talking about how pantsers might not like it because they want to feel a lot more, they might be better into free writing and might prefer that to figure it out, which is also still just as good. As you know, the first draft of a novel is only for you. And so if you're going to be writing something rough, it's okay for it to be rough, especially during NaNoWriMo, because NaNoWriMo is not about being perfect. It's about getting the words written. And so the bookend method allows you to more or less free write, but with a little tiny bit more wiggle room. So with the bookend method of writing, all you do is you plan your beginning of the story and you plan your end of the story, and you just work on the middle free write style. As long as you know where the story is going, um, and where the story is starting, it's okay as long as the story ends up fitting the beginning and the end. So this way you're more or less free writing, but at least you have a destination in mind. Um, Something similar, and I mentioned this in my description box, is that I have a writer friend who tells me that when she's writing novels, especially for NaNoWriMo, what she likes to do is just freely write at the start. She just gets some plot ideas and some characters and she just free writes. But once she gets to the middle point, or what feels like the middle point of the story, she stops the free writing and she thinks, okay, she goes back and she rereads. And then she goes, I need to outline the end. So she doesn't figure out the end of the story until she's already free written the beginning. And I think that what is really good about that process is oftentimes we might think we know how our story is going to end. But when it comes down to it in the first draft, you don't really know your characters or your plot until you're in the nitty gritty of it. And what might end up likely happening is that that end you thought you were going for has completely changed because the characters and the setting just ended up going the way they wanted to go. And in the bookend method, there's no stress about trying to fit your story into that ending. You just free write from the first half, and then after that, you then stop, and the second half becomes outlined so that later when you go back to self-edit, you can just go back and fix the first half. So that way you're telling yourself the story and you're learning what the ending is going to be along the way, as opposed to having an ending or a beginning at the start and kind of pigeonholing yourself. All right, so that is the bookend method. The third method I want to talk about is the plot board. This is also extremely popular amongst NaNoWriMo writers. I don't have a bunch of experience with plot boarding. However, to me, it sounds very similar to the I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a sticky note method as well, that I know a lot of people use for nonfiction writing. So just as I mentioned, I have a couple of links in the description that go into more detail about the plot board, because like the Snowflake method is something that I can't just talk about in a few minutes on this live stream, or I can't just talk about in a few minutes in this video, and give you all the information. I would have to make an individual video for some of these if I really wanted to dive in. And of course, if you're ever interested in seeing individual videos where I actually use these methods for my stories and report back to you how it worked for me, I'm definitely all for that if anyone shows interest. But back to making a plot board. So with this method, definitely read this article that I linked to, because it goes into much more detail. But the general gist is that you get this gigantic trifold board, and you label your acts across the top. So Act 1, Act 2-1, Act 2-2, and so on and so forth. And then once you have the acts all labeled on this cardboard trifold, what you want to do is write a few words about each scene in your book on a sticky note, and then put it where it begins in the story. So this outlining method, I feel like uses a separate part of a creative thinking. So basically, let's say you're the kind of person, and I'm like this too, where sometimes I get flashes of scenes just living my daily life for a story. I don't exactly know where it's going to go, but I just got a flash of the characters in this story doing this one thing or doing that one thing or having that conversation. So I take these flashes of scenes that keep popping in my brain, and then you would just put it on a sticky note, and then maybe when you had the idea, you obviously didn't know which part of the story it would go in. But now that you have a plot board and you've written that vision and that scene and that conversation on your sticky note, you can now take that sticky note and that random idea and put it in which act of the story it belongs in. So I think this is also a really fun method. I think it's really, really good for people who are more visual, because this way you can see if your acts are overloaded or underloaded. You can see, wow, all of my ideas are only in act 3. That's not right. I need to move some stuff around. So I think that is another really good method of outlining, great for visual thinkers. And the last outlining method I'm going to talk about is one that seems to be very, very popular. It feels like often whenever I hear a writer talking about what they use to outline, I keep hearing Save the Cat. This is something I really had no idea about, honestly, until this year. And I have about 2 or 3 links in the description that really goes into detail about this. But like the Snowflake method, this does kind of have a lot of moving pieces. And I know that similar to the Snowflake method, just from looking at it, it's the kind of thing that I know some pantsers or people who would rather just write without planning, they might find it a little bit like they might find it a little bit limiting as well. So Save the Cat is like a beat sheet. It started off, I believe, as something that was used for film, but it can obviously be used for writing as well. In fact, in the description box in my link, I have in my links, I have a link to the Amazon Save the Cat book specifically for novelists. But there are resources online like this website where you can just get a spreadsheet and work on it that way too. So this measures your story outline based off of multiple beats, and it tells you what percentage of your story needs to involve that beat. And so there are, let's see, 15 beats in all, and you just kind of think of your story in terms of these beats to make it well, a good story, I imagine. But the way that this system works, apparently, was that they analyzed the creator of the Save the Cat method. He analyzed what very popular and best-selling products, media, books, movies had in common, and he discovered that these beats were very common for these bestseller movies and books. So this is really good if you're trying to write something that you want to be a little bit more mainstream. I know that I am a speculative fiction experimental writer, and sometimes I just want to write stuff the way that I want it to be, to just the way it pops in my brain. I don't really necessarily care about it being mainstream. But after a while, if you're trying to make a living as a writer, you kind of do need to be paying attention to what works well in your genre, and what could help you get more sales for your book. So those are all of the methods. All right. So those are all 4 of the methods that I want to talk about. So this time around, this one ended up being a lot easier to get through than the first one, the first video with all the ideas. The ideas had a lot more to talk about, but this one we're about 20 minutes in, and that is pretty much all I have to say about it. The last thing I want to say is what outlining technique that I've been using over the years, and what I think I'm going to use for NaNoWriMo this year. So as I mentioned, let me see. All right, so as I mentioned, the Snowflake method is something I have used very often, and it has helped me a lot. However, this is a new year, and I am open to trying something new. So we'll see. I'll have to think about that after this video. I have to think about which one I want to try. For instance, I'm really liking the idea of the Save the Cat method, because that method is good for writing a mainstream piece. I think that when choosing an outline method, I think it does depend on the intention of your story. And I'm still undecided between 2 stories I want to write for NaNoWriMo. If I go with the more wholesome slice of life romance story, then I would probably do something like Save the Cat, because I think something like that has more success as being something more mainstream. It has a lot less moving pieces than some of my other more experimental stories that are bigger in length. However, if I go with the other one, which is a short story collection, because I'd be writing a couple of different things that would be like novellas in and of themselves that would form one big 50,000 word project, I think for something like that, it would probably be better to do the Snowflake method. The post-it card method with the plot board is something that I also could imagine myself doing in combination with Save the Cat. I think they would work well together if you combine those two. So instead of laying it out by X, what you want to do is lay it out by the beats from the Snowflake, from the Save the Cat method, and fill it in that way. That's a good way to get great use of both methods on a more mainstream story. Um, so I used to have an outlining method that kind of was like the Snowflake, but very simplified, where I would just every single chapter I wanted to write, I would have 3 bullet points with the main things that needed to be accomplished in that chapter and the main moving forces for characterization that needed to be accomplished. So I would write the chapter title, I would put some bullet points of the main things that need to be discussed in this chapter, and then next to those bullet points, I would write what those bullet points are doing for the story, how it's moving it forward to make sure that it's actually moving it forward. And then I would write the first sentence of each scene. And from there, I would just kind of just free write and go at it. As long as it fit the scenes I wrote at the start, or as long as I found an alternate method to get the same conclusion out of the scene, even if it's a different version of the scene, that is what I used to do. Pretty much a very simplified, bare bones method of Snowflake. That's what I did in high school to finish books. So that is it. I really hope that this video was helpful for you, whether you're participating in National Novel Writing Month or you're just a writer who needed some help with outlining. I'll be doing another live stream next Friday. In the live stream next Friday, I'll be talking about getting all set up on NaNoWriMo and finding a writing community to keep you motivated and keep you accountable. It is extremely important to have a writing group to keep you accountable, especially during NaNoWriMo, whether it's just in the forums, in a Discord group, or an actual group where you meet people face to face or on Zoom or something. I actually am in a writing mastermind group, and it has done really well for helping me with my own writing. So that next live stream next Friday, let me just check the calendar. So next Friday, October 22nd at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'll be back. And like I mentioned, I'll be talking all about writing community and getting set up on the NaNoWriMo website. Even if you don't have a title for your project, you should definitely get set up and announce that you're doing something. Just for the fact that by announcing it, it makes it a little bit more real for you. And then the very last live stream, which would be the Friday after next, on October 29th. That is where I'll be talking all about writing routines and how to set goals and how to put together a workspace that is conducive to you getting a good amount of writing done. If you really, really want to get to 50,000 words in a month, there really needs to be systems in place to help you. And so in that very last Friday live stream, and last Friday video, I'll be going all over that. So thanks for watching. And if you did find this helpful, please feel free to share it with other writers. If there are any outlining techniques that you absolutely love and that I missed, please comment and put them in the comments so I can explore it. And if you happen to be interested in the idea of me actually experimenting with all of these different outlining methods and actually using them for my stories so I can give you an in-depth opinion about how well they work, at least for me as a writer and for the style of writing that I do. Also, please let me know in the comments, and I can definitely add that to my video roster to test some of these outlining techniques myself and really break it down thoroughly how to use it. All right, so now that the informational portion is over, I'm just going to go and put on a timer, just a 5-minute break timer. And then after that, I will be back to do the live outlining together. All right, so whether you're watching the replay or live, thank you so much. And I will be back in 5 minutes so we can get started with the outline together portion of this video. Sorry about that, guys. The 5-minute timer is definitely happening in the background, but StreamYard is just strangely not allowing me to share the timer. So I'm going to keep experimenting with trying to get this timer to actually show up on screen. Let's see. Hmm. Okay. All right, there we go. The break timer is finally up. So yeah, as soon as this ends, then we would be in the portion where I do some experimentation with outlining myself. Um, all right. And actually, since the live is there's not really anybody watching the live, and this will likely be watched by people who are watching the replay, I'm actually just going to stop the timer early and dive into the writing prompts and the writing session. This time around, instead of the normal 25 minutes, I'm going to cap it at about 15 minutes of outlining, and that will be the end of today's writing session. So let me just go ahead and pull up the writing prompts for today. Um, all right. And so, like normal, these writing prompts, after I finish editing this video and making it a produced video instead of the live stream, these writing prompts will be on my Instagram. If you just find me at writer Tiffany T. Cole. And so from there, you can work on these writing prompts on your own time, and just download the prompts that I created from there. So I'm going to go ahead and start my 15-minute work timer. And in that time, I'm going to work on my own outlining, try to experiment with some of these other ones and see what feels best, to see if I outline both of these stories I'm stuck between, if this will help me really choose which one I want to write. So I am going to go ahead and turn on the 15-minute timer and let the outlining begin. Unfortunately, I'm not able to put the timer on the screen. I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. But when we're at the 5-minute mark and the 1-minute mark, I will put up a notification on the screen that lets you know that. I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic during this time. So if you have any comments, feel free to post them. And I'm going to do some further research into these outlining methods and see which one I want to work on for the two short stories or the two novels that I am stuck in between for NaNoWriMo. So go ahead and mute my mic, and I'll be back in about 14 minutes to tell you how well I did, and if you come in to check with you about how well you did. If you're on the replay team, please post how well you did, and I'll still respond to it in the comments. All right, so that is the end of today's live outlining session. And the next live stream is going to be next Friday at October 22nd, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. And that one is all about writing accountability groups and how to get set up on NaNoWriMo officially. So I hope to see you there. And in terms of how outlining actually went for me, because I'm still undecided about which story I'm writing, it might either be a short story collection or a full-length novel. The outlining methods for short stories versus a full-length novel are so completely different that it's kind of hard to narrow down what outlining method would even work best for it. I think that what I'm going to have to do before I get into NaNoWriMo is I'm going to have to do some really basic plotting and free writing for both of those stories to see how it feels, and then decide to work on whatever feels best. NaNoWriMo normally asks you to start a brand new novel when you're writing as opposed to finishing something else. And I've already finished the first short story in the collection, and there are 3 others that have not been started yet. So I'm not sure if I'm going to be a Nano Rebel yet and do a project that I want to do, which is a short story collection when it should normally be a novel, or if I want to be a Nano regular and work on this brand new novel idea. So that's going to be my big decision. What that unfortunately ended up meaning, though, was that I didn't really outline anything. I just kind of did some research on short story collection outlines that work better. So I still have some work to do outside of these streams. So anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Soon this video will be put up as a produced video that's entirely only about outlining and not the live streaming portion. So be on the lookout for that video. It will be edited and have added effects and everything. So have a good rest of your day, and I will see you next Friday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Bye.